2, 1.
Hey guys, welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here, and today we also have another episode of our highly successful Purple Projections podcast, which was a joint venture with Unbiased Election Predictions. And this episode we have a special guest that is doing the episode with us. Red Blue Politics, go check out his channel. He is growing very quickly, and just go and get him to, he's currently around 50 subscribers. Let's get him to 75 subscribers and everything will be great. So, UEP, how are you?
Hi, Purple. I'm doing really good, and I'm looking forward to this.
And Red Blue, how are you? Red Blue, how are you?
Good. How about you guys?
I'm doing great. So, is there anything
Good.
that you want to? Is there anything you want to say to your followers before we begin?
Just glad you guys could be watching this. I know this might not how you wanted to spend your night, but glad you're here.
And UP, is there anything else you want to say to your followers?
I'm just really glad you guys are watching, and I hope that you guys enjoy our debate.
Yeah, so this episode we're going to be talking about mostly about very important issues in this 2020 election, and these are pressing issues that are affecting people nationwide. So we're going to start, and it's going to be a discussion type, like a podcast, like it's a regular podcast. It's not going to be structured as a debate, but it technically will be. So why don't we get started, because we only have limited time and we don't want to make this video super long for you guys, but listen and stay tuned because it's a great video for you guys to watch. So let's begin. So, first question, what is your stance on charter schools? What I mean by this question is that, do you think charter schools should overtake traditional public schools as the main system of public education? So, let's give the floor to UEP.
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I don't go to a charter school, so I don't know like the whole experience. But charter schools, I think, are very good for our country, and there are aspects of them that I like and dislike. So first, I like the fact that we have publicly funded schools operating on their own. It's kind of like a good experiment, even though they've been around for a while. And I think charter schools are very helpful for families that can't afford public schools, but they provide very high quality education. However, I don't think that we should be taking any more money away from our public schools. Our public schools are the future, and charter schools should not become involved in taking money away from public schools. That's my stance, but I do completely stand by charter schools, and I think they are important to our country.
I personally, I feel with charter schools, they're a great option just because they bring private education, which is very good in the United States, and brings it and mixes it with public education. So maybe some people that could not afford maybe to go to a regular private school, now they have an option to get some more technological education. Yeah, our public schools are behind, but also I guess it's also a lack of innovation. And yeah, it's a very pressing issue, and I guess public schools are losing money constantly to these charter schools. But again, there's also a very big impact that economically, I think almost everything is easier when privatized. Think about it. Like if, for example, healthcare is another big issue, but if it's privatized, it's a little bit more simpler to manage. When the government has to do a lot of these things, it takes a lot more work. So, Red Blue, what is your current stance on charter schools?
Basically the same as UEPs, pretty much. But what we were talking about, public schools and stuff just a second ago, I think one of the most pressing issues we do need to talk about is school choice, because it's really harming a lot of other communities.
Yeah, so this is school choice. Charter schools is technically school choice. So what is your stance on that? Do you think it's good for the country, bad for the economy, all these different things? What is your stance on the issue?
Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Yeah. Because
So,
I live in one of the poorer states in the United States. We have one of the highest poverty levels in the country. So it's really needed in these parts of in this part of the country, because I know especially here we have super high crime rates, and that kind of goes in with the whole messed up public schools and education system here. So Yeah, I think they are pretty needed.
Yeah, education is one of the biggest and most important issues. And specifically with charter schools and school choice, it's a thing that generally has been mostly promoted by Republicans because they want to like privatize everything. And again, sometimes privatization is good, sometimes it's pretty bad. But I think in this case, it's pretty good in the way that it allows people, for example, like Red Blue said, that maybe are in low poverty, in very high poverty areas, to go and take these experiences, especially because a lot of these poor school districts are losing money and they don't have enough funds to take care of every student equally. So this is a great discussion on this issue.
Yeah, I know my school definitely is like, it's definitely not up there. It's a public school. It's not like a charter school or anything like that. But I think charter school would be very good for a lot of the students to go here. Because I know my school has like very poor students, very poor, very low income families go to my school, and it's really rough to see how some of these people live. I think it's like a 60% divorce rate or 60% single parent household rate in my school. So like it kind of ties in with a lot of the issues that could be solved from making like schools better, right?
Yeah,
You know,
and like UAV.
sorry, but I just want to say that privatization, I'm a pretty progressive person and pretty liberal um on most ideological scales. Privatization is not necessarily a bad thing in all cases. Charter schools are somewhat privatized, not entirely, but I especially in Red Blue's community, which he said has a very high poverty rate. It's very important to give students school choice, even though a lot of people who identify as liberal may disagree with it. It's another choice that does not come down to the government and comes down to the people. They can go to whatever school they want, and a charter school does fall into that category of a school that you can have that you can choose to go to but not pay. And I think, and again, I know I said this, but charter schools are very important, and especially in a community kind of like Red and Blues.
Yeah, so
So personally, I don't live in like a poor neighborhood myself. I just wanted to make that clear. I just know a lot of people near me that do. So don't think I'm like this poor, hobo or anything. Right?
Yeah. So like, for example, I attend a charter school, and the opportunities and the things that they offer you, they're very great. I'm not poor or anything of that matter, but just the options of charter schools is great because then you have very high preparations, where usually the public schools in the area where I attend schools, they're mediocre to okay. But nonetheless, I think charter schools are a great option. And let's move on to our next issue. And I think we kind of all agreed on charter schools. They're a good thing for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So our next issue is, what is your stance on Medicare for all who want it? So in the 2020 presidential election, especially in the Democratic primaries, this was a big issue. We had the likes of a Pete Buttigieg or even a Joe Biden, who were kind of like, nah, I don't like this Medicare for all idea. And they said, for all who want it, yeah, you can have it. And then you have the other extreme, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who kind of like that single payer Medicare for all system. So what is your stance on this? Red Blue, you have the floor.
So personally, I'm against it. I think making things owned by the government, something like that, like universal healthcare, right? I don't think that we have the money for it. Like, obviously, you can get like a high tax rate or whatever, but in some parts of the country, that would not be very good. I just wouldn't trust the government with my healthcare too. I mean, my dad had a stroke back in August. My mom had a breast cancer surgery in November, and our single payer healthcare system really helped us out. And I don't think that the government would provide like such a good quality of care. I mean, look at Canada. Oh yeah, free healthcare, right? But the quality of their healthcare is really bad, and there's many people from Canada, in fact, that come to the United States so they can have better quality of care. Like the waiting times are horrible. The how long the excuse me, got off track. Like yeah, it's free, but like the tax rates on a lot of things are super high, and so basically that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, so we see with you that you had a situation, especially like when it comes to those tough like medical situations, and you see how they privatize healthcare helps. So I want to throw the floor now to UEP to talk about the Medicare for all who want it, or like
Yeah.
technically Medicare for all. What is your stance on that?
Okay, so first I want to address something that Red Blue said. So he mentioned that Canada has free healthcare, which they do, and he said the quality of their care is not as good as our privatized health insurance. First of all, Canada has a higher life expectancy than we do. They're
Yeah, but like we eat more barbecue.
We eat more barbecue. What?
I live in the South, okay? Like literally everyone lives off of ribs and French fries. So
I think what he's trying to say is that the Canadian people
it was a joke.
stereotypically,
Yeah, I know.
he's like stereotypically are a lot more healthier than the average American. I mean, and it's facts. I mean, you look at different causes of death in the United States. Among them are things related to obesity, and like diabetes and heart attack and heart failures. So yeah, he's actually right. But like,
well, the fact of the matter is that Canada has a higher life expectancy than we do. Average in America, they live to be 79 years old. In Canada, 81 years, 82 years. I'm not sure. But last time I checked, I think it was 81 years. So that.
But like, look at the waiting times. Look at the waiting times in Canada. They'll like ask you if you're suicidal, and if you're suicidal, they'll put you on like the top of the list. But if you're not, it's like you're at the bottom.
No, but
here's the thing. But also with Medicare for all, the question I think is not more based on the quality of the service, but it's more rather based on, first of all, the economic part. Does it make economic sense? So, for example, like, yeah, they're gonna have to increase taxes a lot. Is what you're giving up in taxes gonna be worth it? You know, because there's great programs. I mean, with the Obamacare and the Affordable Healthcare Act.
Yeah, Affordable Care Act. Yeah.
Yeah, that has brought a lot of big opportunities, especially in rural areas where healthcare was super high cost because you have to travel so far, and in a situation like a heart attack where you have to be transported immediately, those costs were expensive. So I think honestly, the Medicare for all is not a good idea because the money that you're gonna have to give up in taxes would be absurd. Because at the end of the day, you don't usually experience something big when it comes to your health yearly. The average American, for example, yeah, there's the big majority of people that have something minor, yeah, and then you also have the big people that are going to be suffering like big injuries and big things. But then essentially what you're doing is not paying for your healthcare, but paying for the healthcare of others. So
I want to finish. Yes. So good points. And I'm not defending Medicare for all. Medicare for all would not work in America unless you did it at a statewide level, which would not be approved by the majority, or even Charlie Baker probably wouldn't implement that. So also there are a lot of moderate Democratic governors who probably wouldn't implement it. See, that maybe
look at John Delaney and John Hickenlooper. They're very against it.
Yeah, they are. But
throw your hands up. Do you remember that moment from the
throw your hands up? And Bernie was like, okay, but yeah,
universal health care.
You know, but like honestly, I feel like a lot of these ideas that come, these are mostly socialist ideas where everyone is kind of the same. The problems that are going to come like that, and the reasons like I want to like kind of talk about it is because we can tell that like countries in Latin America and even Russia and China, their healthcare system are completely bogus because socialism just went in and out of random. These things have to be slowly implemented if you want them to work. If you're just gonna throw
everything. Can I finish what I was saying though?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so my point is, Medicare for all wouldn't work in America because you'd have to have. It wouldn't work in a big country. First of all, it works in Sweden, but it wouldn't work in America. Second, states probably wouldn't implement. Blah blah blah. But Medicare for all who want it is by far the best option because on the conservative end of the spectrum, you have no Obamacare, no public health care option at all, and just the people who can afford it, like maybe 60% of America, can have their private health insurance. And
so
I think that can I please finish what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that the far left is making this way harder than it needs to be. Bernie Sanders is making Medicare for all look super radical. If you had a moderate Democrat running, or which we do, Joe Biden is a moderate Democrat, but if you had a moderate Democrat running on this platform like Pete Buttigieg, you'd have a lot more people buying into it. There's nothing wrong with Medicare for all because it's a safety net. If I'm president, which I hope to be one day, probably not though, but I hope to be president one day, and if I am, I would try to implement Medicare for all and think of it as a safety net for the people who A, can't afford it, and B, cannot or want to save some money and buy in to the public option. And then there are people who have private insurance who are lucky enough to have high quality private insurance. I'm not going to take that away because taking away other people's healthcare is a really big no-no, and it's really bad for the country when you are like if Bernie Sanders was president, you would have a lot of money being thrown away at people who can already afford their own health insurance. And it's a really bad look for the left. And I think that if we want to have a Medicare system, which I think is a great idea, make it Medicare for all who want it, not Medicare for all or not Medicare for none.
You know, like what would be, I think the Medicare for all, I think it's a thing that it's either like how we have it now or it's like all in. The all in option sounds completely horrible. I mean, whether you're like a moderate Democrat, a moderate Republican, even a radical Republican, and even some liberal Democrats, the thing is that the all-in option just kind of takes everyone's choice. And then essentially what you're doing is, again, taking away America's capitalist feelings, which essentially make up the values of this nation, where everyone is free to do what they want. But then the problem with this Medicare for all who want it is that there's going to be a shortage of doctors, because then doctors are going to say, well, if I can make more money with the private insurances, very low amounts of doctors will actually want to work for Medicare for all. And at the end of the day, that might just collapse the system, which, I mean, again, that's one of the problems that there is with it.
I think if there were to be like a Medicare for all type of deal, it would be kind of like abortion, like a gun laws, you know? It would be like a state by state kind of a deal. It's like California might implement it, but like Wyoming probably would not.
Yeah, but okay. The problem with that is that, like, let's say that you live in California, right? But then you have a heart attack in Wyoming. That doesn't really, like, cover you.
Yeah, that would be a lot of legal trouble for a bunch of different states. But also, I think that Purple made a good point, and that's the best argument against Medicare for all, that shortage of doctors. I think that, first of all, privatized health insurance, like, you know, or like State Farm or whatever, they're not going to have enough doctors to deal with everyone in America. So you're going to have the leftover doctors going over to the public system, and Obamacare is probably the most similar to Medicare for all. They do not have a shortage of doctors. So I think we just build on Obamacare, turn it to Medicare for all who want it, and we have a very good system that a lot of countries say we have this in 20 years from now, a lot of countries are going to look at America and say they did it perfectly. They implemented it slowly and just built on what they already had, and it fit in perfectly. That's what I think the goal should be.
I'm going to explain to you, because, okay, a lot of you know that I'm from Venezuela and I come from there, and I kind of have lived some of these things firsthand. So essentially what the government did in Venezuela, which, I mean, it's a different scenario because it's a lot smaller country. I think it's like 10 times less population, but the effect is going to be the same. What ended up happening is that they did a Medicare for all who wanted, technically speaking. So the hospitals that were like paid by the government and things like that, they went completely broke. They didn't have the supplies and things like that. While you went to a private hospital with your private insurance, there were like state-of-the-art hospitals where you could get the treatment that you wanted. So that's the thing that's going to happen. And then that's going to be creating more of a class divide. And we saw in Venezuela, they did the same thing with that. They did state-owned grocery stores. And so you could get your groceries at a cheaper price, or you can get them privatized, but you're guaranteed that you're going to get everything that you wanted. So you get what I'm saying here?
I understand that, but Venezuela, they jumped into it. We need to build on Obamacare, first of all. And second, Venezuela did it very poorly. They had a dictator as their leader who didn't understand.
Can we just like add something though, like
state of the economy?
Like Bernie Sanders and people, you know, if you look at the history, he's going down the same path as people like Maduro, Chavez, and promising people all this free stuff, you know, healthcare, right?
Yeah,
but
and where are you going to get?
When he gets into power and he starts taking over all these businesses, what are people going to do? You know, like I don't. That's why I don't trust things like that.
Yes, so I think I'm gonna put like a stop point here with the Medicare for all argument, because if not, we're gonna be here for like days, and we haven't
Yeah.
reached the time. So, it's a very interesting subject, I guess, and we can honestly see that there's many different arguments. You have the people that are completely against it, the people who are completely for it, the people that are in between and really they don't care. So we're gonna move on and move to our next topic, which is about the budget. If the U.S. budget is cut short, which one should go first, education or defense? So this is a question like more of like a scenario. So I'm going to give the floor to UEP.
This is easy to me. We can either invest in the future of our country, our children, who are going to be making all the calls in the next, well, in 10 years from now, well, 20, just however long you want. It's either our children who are the future of the world, or investing in something that we might not even need to invest in. To me, it's simple. It's education. First of all, we're not in a war right now. Well, I mean, we still have troops in different regions of the world, but
yeah, like we're still like based kind of everywhere with different military. Like
I know, but we're not in a full-scale war with any country right now, and America is the strongest country in the world, and no one's gonna mess with us in the foreseeable future. No one's gonna do that. No one's gonna come and attack America directly. They have learned. Look at history. America has come on top in every single war except Vietnam, and I'm very proud of America in that regard. But for me to continue being proud of America, we need to invest in education. It's simple. Education is the future, and when you have a bunch of kids who are being educated at low quality public schools, it's gonna you're losing a whole generation of innovation, and that is truly scary, because if you lose a whole generation of innovation, you're 30 years behind all our enemies, and that's worse than cutting the defense budget.
Well, and considering that we're already behind, like it would just be adding on.
Yeah, I mean, it would be absolutely horrible for us long.
Well, but like I mean, this issue, I mean, it's not like it's partisan, because at the end of the day, I mean, governments, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, have been cutting education for years, like statewide or even nationwide, federally. Most governments have, or administrations, whether it be a governor or the president, they've been cutting education because they'd rather have defense. I mean, in a state's perspective, it's not more about defense, but it's other things they need to spend. But education is very important, like he said. And we already have a big gap. Look at the kids in South Korea. Look at the kids in Japan. They're highly prepared. And even India, the kids that are coming from those places, they're growing with huge minds, and they're taking over American job markets. So there's going to be very big problems in the U.S. economically if we're focusing too much on defense. And at the end of the day, not everyone's going to go and be a soldier. Red, Blue, you have the floor.
That, so that's actually a very tough question to me, because if we do cut our budget on things like defense, right, the whole world will be taken advantage of, because we are the last true democratic country on earth that would really stand up to these huge powers like Russia, China, Iran, etc. I mean, all the former big places, for example, like Germany, United Kingdom is still doing fairly well with the military, but all these other European countries that are democratic, they're all starting to get rid of the military. And then once the last democratic country on earth starts decreasing that spending, all these big, huge countries like Russia and China and North Korea, they're going to start taking advantage of that and try to implement new governments and new dictatorships in countries that say are developing, like India or like South Africa, you know?
Yeah.
When has being militaristic ever helped the country? I'm just asking you.
Well, I mean, there's been scenarios, but it certainly has helped.
That's why I said it's tricky, because, like you said, we have a whole generation coming up of educated children, but we also need to defend the rest of the world. Otherwise, all these huge countries are just going to start implementing new governments and new dictatorships and all these other things.
We're too scared to do that. Everyone's scared of America.
This last week.
Yeah, but they won't be scared of America when we start cutting our military.
Yeah,
to laugh at us for stopping a whole generation of innovation.
Guys, I want to tell you something when it comes to this issue. I've been taking a course on international relations, and one of the big things that we cover is security. So I think one of the major things I learned is that, first of all, military spending is important because that is making you seem more like a bigger power, and you have the most power to move things around. Like, okay, you're not gonna go do what I say. Well, consider yourself sanctioned. But then also you have to balance.
Sanctions don't do anything, dude.
Yeah, I know.
There's just a bunch of
for some
BS.
places it does actually move a lot of. Look, money is the source of everything. If you have a lot of money, you can do whatever you want. That's why you see a lot of these billionaires who do horrendous things. They might not even get prosecuted because they paid the judge a bribe and like it's super hush-hush and no one even knows. But the thing is that defense is an important thing to have. And considering the fact that the United States is losing a lot of their military force, I mean, with their allies, because a lot of their allies are like downsizing their militaries. Like I think it was Red Blue said, that will really, like, the United States is now responsible not only for their own security, but kind of the security of their allies, which are not helping them, not with military stuff, but with economic stuff, which actually might be more important at the time where we're living in somewhat a peaceful state.
The reason that Europe is downsizing their military is because they know that brains are more powerful than bronze. When you have who turned the tide in World War II, people who were deciphering German codes, or the people who were finding loopholes in Japan. Like, not like, sure, soldiers. I have all the respect in the world for our veterans, and they are amazing people who serve our country with all their heart and risk their lives, and I have so much respect for them. But bronze are not as strong as brains, and if you throw a bunch of uneducated morons on a battlefield, it's not going to turn out well for you. So
wait, so in this question though, is it like, can you do both of them, or is it like, can you have to cut like military, or you have to cut education?
I mean, cutting is
just like improve
just like cutting. You have to cut one of them. Like, I mean, and usually what they do in Congress is that they just take one and like, oh, the military is more important, and then we're cutting education. I mean, one of my last comments for this issue, I would say, is
that is a great question though. That could really make you think for a long time.
This is a very big thing because also remember, well, brains do have a lot of power because they're the ones that plan out military attacks. They're the ones that negotiate with some of these places and come up with these witty ways to negotiate. Like, I don't know, who knows, creating big corporations so then they can say, okay, you're not going to cater my product and whatever, I'm going to go, I don't know, fight you. The thing is that the brains are important, but then if you don't have the defense equipment, which realistically defense is, for the most part, when at peace, been a waste of money. I mean, you're training, because if you stop training again, it's kind of like if you stopped making YouTube videos for a month, you would lose your kind of your talking points and things like that. So it's more of a practice and being ready, especially when you have high threats from Iran and China and these places who are growing their nuclear arsenals, and even North Korea. So it's very tough. And I would say if there was an option to like cut half and half, like split whatever we need, like 50% or like proportionally, I think that's the best thing to do. But if we had to be like, we have to take this much money and we have to cut it from here or here, I think.
You okay?
Yeah, it was my laptop. Oh, here, it would have to be, I think, cutting defense a little bit, but not enough so you don't have enough money to do things.
Yeah, like I said, that's a very tough question because on one hand, you're going to lose a whole generation, but on the other hand, you're going to lose your country. So, it's like...
You're not going to lose your country. No one's going to attack America. You're not going to lose your country by defunding the military.
They will.
Look, we were to see that just simply with the political influence that China...
You never know when it's going to happen. Like, look at Pearl Harbor.
This is why TikTok, for example, have you heard that TikTok is getting banned? And one of the big reasons for that is that China has been influencing the United States over the last couple of years, and no one's been noticing. Now, I mean, most of the America's next generation, whether that be like people our age or even just people that are going to start voting this year, they're getting things into their mind that are not true. So China is misleading the information about about Trump because they want to push the more liberal agenda because that's essentially their goal. They want to dominate politically.
China wants Trump to win.
No, they don't. Because remember, think about it. China is very liberal because
China beats Trump every time. Listen, they want to take advantage of him. So does Russia. They beat Trump every time, and they know it.
here I have a major disagreement with you. Just to think about it logically, why would China be helping Donald Trump? There is no point
because they know that they can outsmart him every time.
Wait, but no. But what about like the trade war and stuff? They're just gonna take a beating from that. Joe Biden's just gonna take those jobs and put them back into China.
And a lot of these places, what are they trying to do? Look, believe it or not, like I might sound a little radical with this, but I think that, again, bringing back to my connection with Venezuela, it's something that I value dearly. Socialism, I can see it when it's moving. China is trying very hard to influence the United States and bring it down. There's many different aspects, like for example, drugs. That is a big part of why people start thinking about all these different things. And believe it or not, although it may be like something that a lot of people might do for recreation, it's just a way for people to start influencing you, because what are drugs? Just a form of influence. So China is trying to push all these different things so they can start taking control with politicians they kind of like finance to end up and taking control. Very radical idea, but I think it's truly what's happening.
China, like, it makes sense on an ideological scale, because China is very super liberal, too liberal, and they would end up closer to Biden than Trump. But again, Joe Biden served under Barack Obama. He has a lot of experience, and Donald Trump. I think that they know that that they can outsmart him every time, and they've been doing it. They did it in the trade war. They did it every time during his term.
I understand.
That's what they want Trump to do.
I understand, but like here I disagree with you, because again, Donald Trump has been like trying to get these like sanctions out. Obama never tried to do that, and
he's been trying to do that.
Yeah, but like Biden, look, I don't see him as
a globalist.
Biden is a very good person when it comes to personality and even just like domestic issues. But when it comes to foreign policy, I would say the United States is a lot more safer with Trump just because of his way of managing things. Again, at the end of the day, Donald Trump was a businessman, and businessmen are fierce. And I think that's one of the more redeeming factors for Donald Trump and his administration. It has been somewhat of the foreign policy, which is more active than maybe something like the Obama administration. So
we don't need to have an active foreign policy. We need to stay organized, because right now we're crumbling from within, not from China attacking us. Donald Trump is doing nothing to heal the divide in our country, and that if our country
no one is going to be able to heal the divide. We're so polarized.
Yes, they are.
No one's going
to. It was never this bad under Obama. It was never this bad under Bush.
Yeah, you're saying, look, this political divide, and I think it was all created by outside forces that want to get and take advantage of the United States. Because look, now people are focusing, okay, we have to unite the country. But while everyone's too busy doing that, the people from the outside, we have to have good foreign policy, because then people are going to come in and attack. And then the United States might say, we don't have anything to do because right now we are not talking to everyone and unified. That is the thing I have there. Other than that,
China's going to come attack us? I highly doubt that anyone's going to
They're trying to create.
What about Pearl Harbor? Just an example for Pearl Harbor. We didn't see
that was 80 years ago.
Yeah, okay, but like,
so it's still foreign policy. It's still military.
Foreign policy.
Yes, but that was 80 years ago, and you had a crazy.
What about 9/11? That was just like 20 years ago, and we didn't see that coming.
That was
now we have a whole.
Yeah, that was terrorism, and again, America wasn't divided, and Bush could have done nothing to stop. No one saw it coming, and America was doing fine, and then boom, 9/11 happened.
I understand where you're coming from, UEP, but what I'm saying is that we have to look at it from an outsider's perspective. If you're a country like China, who's been trying to gain influence, I don't know if you've known, but they've been buying votes in the UN with countries in Africa by investing a lot of money. They're trying to buy relationships with these poor African nations.
Yeah, like Angola.
What they want to do is the power struggle. They want to be the most power. They want to be the most powerful nation in the world, and just crumbling the United States and making them divided. So when a time of crisis happens, like coronavirus, no, they didn't come together as this. Everyone was like, no, this and that and this and that, and it was so divided that easily a state like China could have come and boom, attacked the United States, and we all would have been incredible.
But they didn't.
They didn't, but it could have happened, and it's a very it's risky.
Anything could have happened.
Anything can happen, but it's more not what can happen, but how likely something is to happen. Considering that China has been trying to influence U.S. politics for the last, 10 years, this is something that could happen. So I think, okay, having time constraints, should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I think
because we're just going to be yelling at each other for hours.
Okay. That was my point of view. I mean, everyone has their own point of view, but who knows?
Yeah, tell us in the comments section who you
Yeah. Okay, this is a very interesting topic because this is currently like with U.S. like domestic policy, and it's one of the hottest issues that we have right now. Should the federal government encourage municipalities to abolish their police departments? So, as we all know, the federal government
Absolutely not. That's
the
a
federal
bunch of
government cannot
hippie
they
BS.
cannot like completely go down all the way down to the bottom and say all police departments are banned. So the question is that they're encouraging. So do you think they should do that? Like completely abolish?
Whose turn is it? Mine or
Yeah,
Red?
I think it's around red blue.
No, go for me. No, I think that's a horrible idea, honestly, because we already pretty much have bad crime rates in a lot of the cities, for example, like Detroit and Chicago, for example, right? And so if we abolish this police, just imagine how much that is going to jump the crime rates. Like, it's going to be full anarchy, too. The whole entire country will be trash, chop, whatever you want to call it, right? It's going to be the whole entire country if we don't have a police force.
UEP?
In America, as the third biggest country in the world by population, we need a police force to police our streets, to police the whole country. As a leftist who does not want to see Trump reelected, the far left, some people call me far left. I'm kind of,
Hold on, can I just add something?
Yeah.
So, like, this isn't related to the topic. I just wanted to say, don't assume, if someone says they're leftist, don't assume that they're a communist. If someone's a right-wing, you don't assume they're a Nazi. Because that's what's dividing our country in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, like, for example, you guys saw how, like, I took the issue with China. I mean, that's one of the issues I'm very passionate about, and that's one of the issues I'm more far right on. But there's several issues that I'm very far left on, and that's what really comes to show that being unbiased does not mean that you have to be completely down the middle. And being neutral doesn't mean, or independent doesn't mean you have to be completely down the middle. It's having different points of views and being rational. If you're not thinking of things from both points of view, I think one of the best ways to like say an argument is right or wrong is analyzing the other point of view and then coming back. UEP, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Purple. Yeah, I think you made a really good point about being independent and super moderate. Don't mean the same thing. I'm pretty left, but I consider myself to be independent. But anyways, we need to police our country, and the far left saying that we should defund the police or even abolish it, that creates a horrible look for the Democratic Party and progressives. It's a few people who are very angry, and rightfully so. I mean, George Floyd was murdered, and I hope he rests in peace. That was a horrible thing that never should have happened. But
just because one police officer does something doesn't mean we should abolish
everyone else. It's kind of saying, yeah, go ahead.
Can I please just finish? No, but the point is, we can't just. Some people think that the police are the problem. We need to look at the source of the problem, not what people think is the problem.
Yeah, things like
the problem
education.
Is how divided America is.
Okay, can I tell you, this is one single reason why the United States is just like, it's in a horrible place right now. That's because of like single parent households. Like the most unlucky thing that the most unlucky starting point you could ever start in this country is in a single parent household. Like if you live in a 2-parent household, right? You have basically the world set in front of you, unless you become like some kind of a degenerate that like smokes and does stuff like that. That is the biggest single reason that we need to fix, and we need to stop letting people live off of the welfare program in the United States. Like 63% of immigrants live off of welfare, and we need to also fix like black on black violence.
Okay,
Those
but
are the biggest reasons.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Also, hold on.
I think that's kind of off topic.
So look, when it comes to this
that's from the source that we start with.
Yeah, that's the source that you start with. But like, it's the same thing as saying that. Okay, you've heard like on the news like a kid kills his mother or something like crazy, like one of those crazy news stories that we see. I don't know, once in a while. Then by that means, I mean, if they say arrest every single kid in America, that doesn't make sense. Now, okay, and there's another thing. We don't know the full aspects of things. I don't think it's fair enough to say, well, George Floyd was, the way that they killed him was certainly very unjust, but we don't know the complete background to that. We don't know, because remember, a lot of things are hidden, and they usually come out later in the process in justice. And who knows? Maybe it could have been a crazy scenario where something crazy had happened and the police officers had no other choice. Still, very inhumane and everything. But I think at some point, it has to be a life or death situation for the police officers. And I mean, by that same argument, we've seen many police officers killed before. So it's kind of like, why? America has a lot of crime. And it's, again, there's many sources. I think drugs is a big source. Another big source is, like he said, like different, like when you're starting off like with your life, when it comes, if you don't have the right path set, you might get like through these different paths and then bad things should happen. Anything else, UP or Red Blue?
No, well, I agree that that it's they're in a bad spot being born in a single parent household. We can't fix that though. What we can fix is the racial divide in America. We need to heal the divide, and we can't do that.
Well, actually, yeah, we can. We can't fix a single parent household thing, but
we can't do that. When we have a president who's tweeting his supporters yelling "white power," that is just so. If he thinks that, fine. I don't agree with that, but he should not be tweeting that as president of the United States. Second, abolishing the police again is a really bad idea. Because most police officers, can I please just finish? Most police officers are very good people. It's just there are a few bad apples who are making them look horrible, and I do feel for them. Plus, it'll put abolishing the police. It's putting thousands of hardworking Americans out of their jobs. So it's a really bad idea all around. But there are things we can do to fix it.
I'm going to give you the big point of this. It's communications. So I think there's like a ton more positive police officers. There's the police officers that see you playing basketball, so they get out of their cop cars and start playing basketball with you. Or like you're having a lemonade stand or something like that, and like a little kid's having a lemonade stand, and they go and buy a lemonade or something like that. Those news stories that are a lot smaller, they're not getting shown, and I think that's what's painting the police as this super ultra evil source of like justice. And justice is something that's deserved. So the same way that that there's racial injustice in the United States, I think honestly all types of justice need to be in the United States. Not only racial, but then if you break a law, you have to be held accountable. Because then if not, we're gonna have an anarchy, which we saw that they tried an experiment in Seattle, and how many people died? A couple of people died because of violence, because there was no police to enforce the laws. I think
we should table the topic, but
yeah. Red Blue, is there like your last point that you wanted to make, your last statement?
Well, I think if we were to abolish the police, it would be instantly like, I don't even know how that would happen. Like, it would probably just go to the Supreme Court and be like overturned or whatever. But if it were to happen, like, I think that there would be like a citizens' revolt, because it is super unpopular. I don't know the exact percentages, but I know it is one of the most unpopular ideas in the United States. And it's basically just like the fringe people on the corners of the internet and some like far left people that are advocating for this. But the majority of Americans do not support the abolishing of the police.
I'm going to tell you something. The only places where this might help the Democrats is in they're very heavily I guess mostly the urban areas in general. And then when it comes, and we're getting into the suburbs,
those areas are already going blue anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to help them there, excite their base. But then when it comes to the suburbs, you're going to lose them completely. And that's going to hurt them a lot more, because there's a lot of swing states which are truly swung by the choices of the suburbs.
Yeah, just the suburbs.
So I think this is enough with this topic, because it's very hectic. So let's go, I think, to the last topic. Okay, there's 2 more topics. Okay, so should the government provide more stimulus to the U.S. economy? Think carefully, because the easy question, a lot of people are going to jump and say yes, but there's a lot more factors. So I'm going to give the floor to, I think, who started last time?
Go to UEP. I started last time.
All right, so I don't have a lot to say about this because I think, well, I'm not going to talk a lot. And so after this quick statement, I'm going to leave it to you guys. But we need to have a template for creating, like, on one hand, you can't have no stimulus because America is in tatters right now. And you have to have a hands-on, like Herbert Hoover, he tried one tariff and that was it. But he literally said, the graces of God are going to lift us out of the depression. And, you know, I'm not going to criticize his belief in God, but just saying God will handle it has proven not to be reliable. So instead, the thing we should do is have a hands-on approach to this. roll up our sleeves and talk to the people and see what they want, and then have a template and see how many of their expectations can we meet, and then we can create a new stimulus check that
Oh,
works for the people.
I'm gonna say
okay.
something.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the problem with stimulus checks. Yeah, in an emergent situation, and like we saw, like the economy was like completely in shambles, like from day to night. That is the most responsible thing to do. But now that we're a couple weeks or months actually into the pandemic, we see that the economy has sort of started to come back in track. So releasing a full stimulus check would be irresponsible because, again, people are not using the stimulus checks for what they're supposed to. The stimulus checks were originally intended, one, to pay your bills and things like that, and also like start the other industries that were completely shut down and they're not even allowed to reopen. For example, the travel industry was completely in shambles after coronavirus. Cruise industry, traveling, hotels, restaurants, clubs, all these different things, realistically, they were super hit by the pandemic. If people are going out to the mall and they're buying luxury things with the check they were supposed to pay their water bill, or they were supposed to go out and, I don't know, at least like go and spend money in these restaurants so they can go and circulate, what is the point of sending stimulus checks? So the government is buying you a new bag? What's the point of that?
Okay.
Just so you guys know, I have to go in like 15 minutes, so just, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're almost good. I think this is our penultimate question. Yeah.
So, okay, I have the floor. Okay, so, what I have a gripe. Okay, so I'm for the stimulus checks. I think they're a great idea. But one thing I have a major gripe with it is that it needs to be adjusted by the cost of living of each state. Because my parents, like, when they go to work, they make so-and-so much a week. But the people that they had a furlough are making even more than them just based off of the stimulus checks. Yes, that might work in Hawaii, California, Massachusetts, right, where the cost of living is so high. But where I live, where it's very low, it's like these people are just getting way too much money that they don't need.
Yeah, okay. I 100% agree.
I agree with you. For example, I didn't receive a stimulus check. Like, my family didn't receive stimulus checks. But I would say that, honestly, that's one of the big problems. So essentially, you're losing a lot of your workforce because then people might say, well, what's the joke here? I'm not working and I'm making more than I used to. So I'm going to stay at home. And again, long term, that's going to be horrible for the economy because then you start losing a lot of that cash flow, like coming in and out. And if like the whole country is living off of unemployment, which gives them a little bit more money than they used to make, what's the people are just going to say, okay, I'm just going to chill.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah,
exactly. But I think the problem that comes with that is that if you start adjusting all these things, then it's going to be hard to tell like who needs it and like that. So stimulus is a thing that has to be treated with a lot of care because sending out wrong checks like could be like catastrophic for the government, and it's not doing any good if it's just going to these ultra rich brands. Like, for example, I went to the mall recently and I walked by a Louis Vuitton store, so like a very high end designer store. And there's like people like lined out of the doors. Like, I've shopped at that store before and I've never seen like the lines so long. And people are like just buying stuff and like I don't know why, and it's probably because of the stimulus checks, I would assume. But I don't think that's the right purpose for the stimulus checks.
All right, we move on.
Yeah. I think this is the last question. What is the best way to create more jobs without causing more economic damage? So what I mean by this is that essentially we saw how this type of creating more jobs, which is kind of just reopening the jobs, how that kind of fared out because they started to reopen too fast and now we're kind of some states are getting into a reclosing phase. So what is the best way to create more jobs without causing too much money or more economic damage? So I think that Red Blue has the word on that one.
Okay, so now so I think we need to get rid of like the globalist thing, and we need to start bringing our jobs that were put in like China and the Philippines and Vietnam, and we need to bring them back here. Now look at all these places in like Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, where all these jobs are going away. Where did they go? Probably to China, probably to Vietnam, probably to the Philippines. And that's what the globalist agenda does. That's what it does.
I understand.
And that's one thing.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from, but like think about it. Bringing those industries back will cost millions and millions of dollars and money that the United States can't afford to pay right now. So like I think that is a great idea. I mean, the manufacturing jobs they should come back, but at the end of the day, that's a pretty like not going to happen thing due to the
Well,
fact.
I don't mean it just as like one time. It'll be like gradually over, say,
Of
like a
course,
decade
yeah.
or something.
But then also like think about it. Companies like in the United States, yeah, manufacturing in the United States will be a lot better, but there's really no benefits for the companies. For example, if you're a company like Adidas, making your shoes in China is a lot easier and less expensive. So you're going to be able to make more profits. That means
Exactly.
more stores, more selling. Which I mean, at the end of the day, the globalist agenda is pretty much just moving to see where these big companies can make the most margins. Which I mean, generally speaking, is going to affect whoever like lost their jobs manufacturing right away. But then also, I mean, you have some return when it comes to like new retail stores and things like that. At the end of the day, I think the best thing to do would certainly be bring the manufacturing jobs back. But I think a more fast, more effective way to bring more jobs back is infrastructure. So I think infrastructure is very important. So, for example, the last month, President Trump announced that he's going to be spending a lot of money out of Department of Transportation to bring a lot of modern infrastructure to the United States. Our airports are being held, they're very behind from the super big masterpieces they have in places like Dubai or Singapore or China. And we're also losing a lot of our roads are in bad damage. And a lot of our system, like our bullet trains and things like that, that we have very high potential of having these things, but it's just that they haven't come to fruition. So with the US investing in these things, they're also investing in more jobs because, yeah, the people who are building it, that's more jobs. Then when those things open, you have retail, I don't know, maintenance, all these different things, which creates more jobs. And it's essentially spending money. And it's not only because they want to bring companies back, but also because it's helping out the general welfare of everyone. UP, you haven't talked yet. Right?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna make this quick, because I have like 10 more minutes. But actually, okay. So here's the point. America is losing jobs, and I think we all know that. And there are 2 ways or 3 ways to tackle it. There's the bonehead way, which is do nothing. Obviously, no one's gonna like that. And then there's the Donald Trump tactic. And on paper, it sounds good. Bring our jobs back from overseas. Go back into a time where America was the prime of the world, aka after World War I, and we had insane economy. And yeah, it sounds good. And if we could return to that, we would have already. But I think that we've learned that we cannot be a 21st century nation that competes with other countries by using economic standards from FDR and Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower. That's not going to happen. We need to invest more in tech, which is the future of the world, and catch up to our European counterparts who, by the way, in places like Germany, they are very high tech. Bullet trains, kind of like you mentioned, very good idea. But infrastructure is important, but we have to invest in killing 2 bats with 1 stone.
Oh,
or
yeah.
in this
Okay. Can I mention something?
At the end of the day,
but can I finish, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so to do this, we need to tackle climate change and the fact that we're losing jobs quickly. We need to kind of move away from the auto industry and move more to the tech industry. And to combat climate change, I know this is a super bold statement, but we need to implement the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal would create 30 million new jobs, and it would only it would kill like 10 million, if that, no, like 5 million. But those 5 million people who are losing their jobs transfer over air blue please mute yourself, but they're going over to the new climate change friendly jobs that are going to rebuild this country, rebuild the economy, and turn it into a true futuristic economy that will dominate the world for the next 100 years while tackling climate change in our country. It is by far the best idea. It is a very good plan, and as president, I would probably issue, or if I couldn't pass it through Congress, I'd probably issue an executive order that would include parts of it, kind of like a.
Sounds like you're trying to campaign for president.
Wait, can I just mention something though?
I was gonna say something. I mean, sorry, Red Blue, but the Green New Deal, yeah, you're saying that there's going to be 3 million, but then you're losing 5 million jobs. The fact of the matter is that, first of all, what's the point? Because like not everyone's going to directly transfer to, because they're different skill based. I mean, for example, if you're like in auto industry, and for example, and you transfer all those people like to solar jobs. I mean, not solar jobs, like green jobs. They're not the same thing, and these people are not going to want to directly transfer. So there's going to be 2 million people without jobs, which could increase more because remember, once people are without jobs, then there's that big domino effect that continues to happen because of cash flow, which at the end of the day will not be good for anyone. And I think the Green New Deal sounds a great thing on paper. Like you're going to have 3 million new jobs, you're killing 5 million, but then you're probably going to get those back. But then also
I said 30 million.
30 million. You're killing 30 million? Oh. And how many?
No. You're creating 30 million. I've read the plan. You create 30 million new jobs, and I'm just my guess, killing around 2 to 5 million jobs.
Well, no, because then you also have more jobs that you're killing in the process, I guess. But then also, there's going to be
either way. 30 million new jobs is a very good.
It's very good, but then also
wait, can I just say something though?
You're gonna have to like increase different things, and like honestly, I get where you're coming from, but I think a more effective way would be with infrastructure and involve these new technologies and invest. Because at the end of the day, this is all investing in technology will then produce other things. So that's what I think. Red Blue, you have to speak.
I did read something though. If America went like 100% green, it would not change climate change barely at all. It's places like China, Russia, the Ukraine, Saudi Arabia.
No, I agree, but
they're putting out the most pollution. And like if we went 100% green, it would not change the course barely at all. And I don't trust all these predictions. Yeah, but like hold on. I think climate alarmism, I definitely believe in climate change, but I think climate alarmism is a whole different story. Okay, so back like actually even in the back in like 1922, they published this article and it was like, oh, the ice is gonna all melt, and if we don't do anything in 5 years, the whole world's gonna end. That was back in 1922, and we're doing the same thing now. And all these predictions, like Kiribati, Tuvalu, and all these like Pacific nations, they would be underwater by 2000. New York City was gonna be underwater by 2016, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's why I'm very skeptical of all these predictions. Like I said, I do believe in climate change, but I do not believe that the whole entire world is going to be underwater like these predictions are saying.
But did you know actually that, interestingly, manufacturing actually does not bring that much effects to climate change. When you have a lot of factories and things like that, yeah, it's going to bring a lot more. But it's actually just regular human life that affects that. And like how we, for example, the food chain, cows and things like that, and like just livestock, they produce more, like 20% of the world's climate change, which is a lot. And like cars and humans and like individually, they don't produce as much. And it's to get rid of climate change, you're gonna have to like move everyone to a green diet, which I mean, a lot of people won't be willing to give up. But realistically, like moving into a Green New Deal, that doesn't do anything. I mean, it's a very interesting thing, and with the creation of jobs, I get where you're coming from, but then also we have time restraints. So if you want to say one last thing, either of you, so UEP.
Okay. So basically, sorry. Give me 1 second. You guys can go.
Okay, so I think that at the end of the day, this is going to be the biggest part, and the economy is a very hard thing to touch because once you start playing a lot with the variables, then you're going to start seeing these negative impacts. If you move too much with the climate change, then something else might blow up in your face and you've killed the US economy by doing something that you could have prevented. So economy, very carefully, and I think infrastructure has been proven that has been investing in technology. It's been proving that you've been able to grow jobs. It's been proven that you're going to have more places that people can go work and more commercial planes, more business when it comes to trains and things like that.
Okay, so I'm back. So I was on mute, so I don't know if you guys caught this, but to the viewers on my end, I apologize. My dad was yelling at me. That's my fault. I should have closed the door. But anyways, So overall, I 100% agree with, or sorry, that was a bad wording. I agree with both red, blue, and purple on a lot of stuff. I just think that overall we need to take action on climate change. And red, blue, I don't know you in person, but you seem like a really smart guy, and like I trust a lot of the stuff you're saying. And I really do hope you're right about climate change. And I didn't know about the article written in 1922, but I really do hope that you're right in that this is all just some big hoax. And if that is true,
I don't think it's a hoax. I just think it's not gonna the world's gonna end.
I'm very worried about climate change, and I hope you're right. But I think that it's better to be safe than sorry. In the taking action, killing two birds with one stone is the best idea. Plus, creating jobs in the process. There are a lot of what ifs. I know, but I think it'll pay off in the end. So I'm gonna. I have like 2 more minutes, so let's please wrap this up.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. But last thing about the question was more based on kind of immediately like to take care of the coronavirus, but it doesn't matter because we actually came up with really good arguments. And I think that's the last slide. Oh no, guys, I want to thank all of you for watching. And red, blue, and unbiased. Do you want to say anything to your followers?
I'll go. All right, so thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. Obviously, me and Purple will be back next week. Tells you think not necessarily like won the debate, but like I think all of us made good points. Like say at 3:14, that was a good point by red, blue, or at 5:36, that was a good point by purple or something. Just tell us in the comment section, and I hope you'll sub to all 3 of our channels. All 3 of us do provide great content, and I hope you can help us get up there.
And can I just say to some of the people like in the comments, right? Take notice from us. Like we have all different opposing political views. Like PPT, he is more of a centrist. UEP is more of like a more on the liberal side. I'm more on the conservative side, and we can still all come together and have a discussion. I noticed that places, especially right now in the United States, where we're so divided, it is very good that we can all come together and have these discussions. Where I noticed on the internet, right, if you have like one opposing, like say there's like a PragerU video, right, and you read the comment section, someone says like, oh, I disagree with something in the video, then you just get called like a communist, and vice versa on like CNN channel. And so I'm glad, and I hope all like the followers and stuff, you guys can all come like unite and just hear the other side out. And yeah, I hope all you guys have like a great day. And, yeah.
Guys, I mean, I want to say the same thing because they have both made great points with this like out report, and then generally speaking, both of them made great points, and I think I did pretty good too. But I think that honestly that is true. We are very divided as of right now, and this is just one example of how different opposing political views can just come together and to have a civilized discussion. Although at times we got a little bit more passionate with the argument and things like that. At the end of the day, it's a discussion, and we're all American. We're all American, and we're all able to discuss this. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to go subscribe to Purple Political Talk. We have a goal of getting to 200 subscribers. Unbiased Election Predictions, UEP has a goal of getting to 215. And we've set
a goal to getting to 100.
100 for a red, blue. We can make this. And guys, I want to thank all of you for watching. So the way we're going to do this is more premieres will go through until like the end of the hour. So the first premiere will be on my channel. Then I think we're going to do it on Unbiased Election Predictions. And then last we're going to do with red, blue. So the more people just accumulate and go to the other person's channel, so we can all keep on that long discussion that we're having in the premiere chat. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.